In the year 1971, the city of Murray Bridge, located in South Australia, was looking forward to holding a fest, which was called the Warama Festival. It's annually hosted on the weekend of Australia Day, that's celebrated every year on January 26th. Australians celebrate this day to mark the anniversary of the arrival of the first fleet of British ships at Port Jackson, New South Wales in 1788, and the raising of the Union Jack by Captain Arthur Phillip, which signified the beginning of British colonization. So it's somewhat comparable to America's Columbus Day. There was a council of people who were hired to plan this event, and among them was Dennis Newell. Dennis had his own creative idea on how to get more people to come to the fest. He molded plastics for a living, being the founder of a fiberglass company called Newell Group, later renamed to Newell Composites. One of the things that fascinated him most as a child was a folklore book. It was called The Monster of Murray Bridge, and it most likely contained different stories of the same monster terrorizing various people. Just imagine your childhood folklore book like The Gingerbread Man or The Three Little Pigs, and how they contained several short stories. It's not widely available for the public, as it was written for the locals of Murray Bridge. The stories themselves were passed down through many, many generations by, pardon my pronunciation, the Ngarrindjeri people. They were one of the many tribes of indigenous people that were very tragically chased out by the European colonizers. Many sadly did not survive the colonization, but there were some who persevered and ended up staying in the Murray area. Combined with their very rich heritage, their language and very old tales were preserved and passed down to their next generations of children. As I stated in Abandoned Animatronics 2, stories describe the man was turned into a half-man, half-fish creature and banished to the depths of the river.
The Mulyawank watches for young children to come and jump in the water. As it jumps in the water, it'll come up and get them and take them right onto the bottom of the river and put them in this big cave. They'll never see their mum and dad ever again.
So Newell proposed to the council his original idea of incorporating local indigenous folklore with the modern revolution of animatronic entertainment. He was probably exposed to animatronics when visiting large theme parks as a kid, and also saw them on TV programs that captured Disney parks and World Expos of the time. So when proposing his idea, the planning council needed to take a vote on it. The decision to go through with it was passed by the narrowest of margins, just one vote. That one vote being from Mayor E.W. Decky. He saw the potential the Bunyip had, but everyone else just threw the idea off as ridiculous. It seems the first animatronic's final design more so resembled the way it was drawn in the storybook, rather than how modern versions look, like the one being shown now. So Newell resketched the storybook's Bunyip as a 3D model. Using plastic molds, he created this skin of the terrifying monster. To animate Bert to life, he had to team up with his friends, which were 3 local engineers. Every day after work, they'd all meet up in Newell's backyard shed, working on putting Bert together. Neighbors heard about their plans and saw them gather in Newell's shed every evening. They immediately thought the 4 were crazy people, even mocking them. You see, animatronics, especially in Australia at the time, were pretty much unheard of. They planned for Bert to have a moving jaw, blinking eyes, and arms that moved upwards, to look like he was getting ready to jump at the audience. But animatronic hydraulics, like Chuck E. Cheese's had in America at the time, weren't readily available for cheap back then. So the engineers created a simple fix. They programmed a thin cage that sat underneath the beast, lowering and raising once activated, with an audio tape housed inside the station with the activation button. The city paid Newell $2,250 for the invention to be created, roughly 11,855 Australian dollars, or 7,942 US dollars today, and it was revealed in the city's newspaper in 1972. The Bunyip was placed in a fake cave that used to be an old kiddie pool sitting alongside the Murray River. Because of how caught up Newell got with production, Bert delayingly got placed 3 days after the Warama Festival, but still, it went wild. That's all the Newstown people and kids at school would talk about. The animatronic was activated so much that Newell had to put some sort of limit on it to avoid the circuits getting fried, so he added a coin activator, kind of like that of the Man and Dog show at Gillian's Wonderland Pier, but this one was 20 cents.
Going in.
Dennis didn't give the Bunyip an official name, nor explained that it was a female until 10 years later. So at this point of time, everyone believed he was a male, and fans simply called him Bert. It was a common/funny name in Australia at the time.
Thing like you in the whole wide world. Be quiet, sir, guy.
Kinda like the American name Bubba now. Even local newspapers knew the Bunyip didn't have a name. Looking back at old clippings, the writers only ever mentioned Bert as the Murray Bridge Bunyip, or simply the Bunyip. Bert's original roaring audio tape, not the same as the one today. It sounded instead like this. Bert's original roaring audio tape was so loud that people could even hear it from 1 kilometer away, which is equal to 10 football fields. I'm not kidding. Even the city's website confirmed it. The site ended up getting so crowded during afternoons and on weekends that local companies started begging and offering to provide the merchandise for Bert, like t-shirts, pins, and school lunchboxes. There were even plans for an official board game to come out at some point. Newell saw how big his invention had become and remembered an old plan he had to open up his own amusement park called Dreamtime Land. After a while, he asked the city if he could take Bert back into his possession, but the city insisted on keeping him there permanently. So because of that, Newell made several other Bunyip animatronics, now giving Bert some brothers. But we'll get into that later. Ten years later, the Bunyip's attraction was still very popular all throughout Australia. Hundreds of people from out of town made a whole day's trip just to see Bert, which brought more business to little shops and restaurants nearby too. Dennis Newell, though, felt like the Bunyip story was getting a little dry and needed some revamping. He sat at a bench near Bert, quietly watching as families came by, only for them to jump in surprise at the Bunyip's thunderous, frightening roars. After some due diligence, he knew just what the Bunyip needed. A baby. He finally created an official lore that was explained in newspapers. He corrected fans by clarifying that the Bunyip never was a male. It was instead always a female, and now it gave birth to a child. Newspapers headlined about it, including photos of its design. The locals named the baby Oscar. Now, if you're already familiar with Bertha and Oscar, you know that this version of the baby looked nothing like how it did later on. Well, just like Bertha, over the years of constantly sinking into the water and coming back up, the cosmetic skins became corroded and very morphed, making them look a whole lot more demented and horrifying to look at. Over a decade had passed, and as the years went on, the more teenagers' respect for public parks got worse. The Parks and Recreation officers started reporting garbage being scattered all around the attraction. Teens would grab onto the gate, trying to break it open. When that failed, they would have tantrums and just throw all of the trash they could find into Bertha's swamp. Consistently for weeks, a group of them brought screwdrivers, opening the button station where the audio tape was housed. They jammed the screwdriver into the tape, causing the freakish roars to play all night at an even louder volume. Then, in 1991, the teens finally managed to break into Bertha's and Oscar's swamp. During the night, we're not sure how, but probably with the use of some tools, the teens fully ripped off the front gate guarding Bertha and Oscar and threw it in the grass next to them. After actually getting into the swamp, they managed to rip Bertha's left arm clean off of her body. Using her arm, they hit Oscar's head with it over and over again. causing his head to completely fall off. By the morning time, the recreational officer found them destroyed and notified Dennis Newell. He blocked off the attraction until Newell came, and when arriving, he was just distraught. Initially, Newell tried using a couple of methods to repair them, but when put to the test, they fell apart every time. At that point, he saw no use in keeping the same old designs, especially if he was going to fully rebuild the animatronics. So instead, he went back to the drawing board, and the outcome was much friendlier than expected. So in response to the destruction of Bertha and Oscar, a completely new Bunyip took their place. At first, the townspeople had mixed feelings about it. Most of them agreed this one is quieter, more cartoonish, and much more approachable for younger kids. A lot of the older people who grew up with the 1972 version really do not like it till this day. And actually, the Ngarrindjeri indigenous tribe publicly stated that this new one is too friendly, and it's just not a good representation of the original story. Its machinery works the same as the original, only that its cosmetic skin is a much bigger giant mold made from fiberglass that's held together by a wire mesh frame. The mold is so big that its hollow inside can hold 40,000 liters of liquid. That's about 212 of those big plastic water jugs. Another update came with the cost of the activation button going up from 20 cents to $1. The Bunyip was left alone for about 17 years, with an occasional cleanup here and there, from dirt and algae that sometimes sneaks into its swamp. Then, in 2017, a hydraulic pump that powers the mouth movements broke during performance. Because it was forced to continue moving during failure, it ended up getting overworked, causing it to blow up. Out of the pump, black oil leaked into the Bunyip's swamp. There was so much oil that from head to toe, the Bunyip was covered in black. The Bunyip kept performing in the oil for about a week, until the maintenance guy noticed it, causing a temporary shutdown and serious refurbishment. It was completely repainted. New hydraulic components were placed, the crane that lifts the cage in and out of the water was replaced, and most importantly, the Bunyip became free to activate, removing that $1 activator button. For some reason, after the show was reopened, the audio tape was reset with the same volume settings as 1972, causing a lot of noise complaints from businesses, even 2 kilometers away. Imagine the ears of the people in front of it. Maintenance quickly fixed that problem too, though. For another 5 years, the Bunyip was left alone until floodwater from the Murray River submerged its cave. All of its electronic components were completely ruined, so it once again had to be removed, and replacing it this time was an augmented reality version. A QR code stuck onto the classic sign, and visitors would scan it for an AR version of the Bunyip to pop up on their phone to spook them. Everyone hated this, and there was a lot of pushback. But unfortunately, the cost of maintaining and paying for its electric usage became a big responsibility for the city. The city was really set on keeping the hologram Bunyip instead of the actual animatronic. Even the maintenance people and Newell family pushed for the city to keep the actual animatronic though. And sure enough, they gave in, backtracking on their original statements of removing Bertha. So at the time of uploading this video, you can still enjoy a good scare by the one and only Murray Bridge Bunyip in South Australia. And because animatronic enthusiasts like you and me, the hundreds of fans from back in the day, has now become hundreds of thousands of people that visit to see it yearly. I hope to visit it one day too, honestly. Dennis Newell's plans to open up his own Bunyip-themed amusement park never went through. He supposedly had a couple of concept sketches of, you guessed it, the Bunyip-themed rides and games. One of the ideas was a mini roller coaster for kids, and the carts looked like mini Bertha bunyips. Reminds me a little of that small dragon roller coaster that was at fests and state fairs when I was a kid. If you know, you know. To avoid being too monotonous, the park would have included other mythical creatures too. The local Australian council must be a little hard to get by. Newell even had an idea of where he wanted the land to be. But when he asked even about simple permits, the council gave him a hard time. Another issue he came across was the budget. Just to complete and build the simple things of the park, he needed at least $750,000. Accounting for inflation, that's about 4 million Australian dollars and 2.65 million US dollars today. So yeah, definitely a hefty amount. It's a shame though. I already know there would have been hundreds of thousands of fans visiting the park yearly. Dennis met himself in the middle and just focused on building Bertha's family. Let's go back to 1974. The people in charge of OZE Wildlife saw the crazy effect Newell's new animatronic had on tourists and offered him triple the amount of money he made from Murray Bridge to now instead make Bertha's brother animatronic. He of course agreed, as he was planning on building another anyways for his dream theme park, Dreamtime Land. Him and the original team quickly started on development. Opening in 1969, OZE Wildlife Sanctuary was home to many zoo animals, and there were a couple of mini side amusements in the mix too. OZE Wildlife was nicknamed Ettamogah Wildlife Sanctuary by locals, since it was located off Ettamogah Road in Albury, New South Wales. The center was solidly popular in the area, and management was always looking for ways to add new creative twists. They felt like putting a big chunk of their yearly budget into the hands of Dennis was a good choice. They wanted the animatronic swamp attraction to last them a long time, and for the sanctuary to become famous nationwide, from all the buzz the placement might start. To avoid the city of Murray Bridge getting upset over another bunyip looking exactly the same, this one wasn't based off of the storybook. Dennis instead completely sketched this one with his own imagination. After completion, Bert's brother looked polar opposite to him. He had bigger lips that stuck out and much sharper teeth. His eyes became bigger, sitting further apart. They were also yellow instead of red. His body altogether was much bigger. OZE demanded that a $1 activator be placed instead of the Murray Bunyip's 20-cent activator. They wanted to make sure they'd make money back on him, while simultaneously attracting new visitors and creating nationwide buzz. Once the dollar was inserted, the Ettamogah Bunyip would begin roaring. There was a hose mechanism that spanned from its mouth to his lower half. This hose sucked water up and spat it back out at the visitors. It shocked them every time. The video being shown is the only one we have of him today. His audio tape is also lost, but it said it was even more terrifying than Bert's. Even though the bunyip was fully completed, Dennis always felt like there was something missing from it. After a couple years, he was helping out with a standard maintenance call on the Ettamogah Bunyip and finally figured out what the issue was. He carefully crafted a horn and added it to the animatronics cosmetic. This is truly one of the most iconic later additions in animatronic history. At first glance, it comes off as random and looks like it belongs on a unicorn instead. But at the same time, it makes so much sense. The bunyip is a mythical creature too, after all. By 2002, the Ettamogah Bunyip had undergone dozens of fix-ups. OZE got fed up with constantly calling Dennis's team and dumping buckets of money into it, so they threw an out-of-order sign up, leaving the bunyip to sit in its swamp, where it slowly rotted in front of all the visitors. For some reason after this, tons of legal troubles started hitting OZE. Year after year, the local council stopped renewing the center's most important permits for exhibits, such as being allowed to publicly hold and display sloths or koalas. So every couple of years, a new exhibit was forced to be shut down, causing less and less people to come, making the center run into a big financial rut. In 2012, the last and most popular exhibit closed. It allowed visitors to hand-feed kangaroos and wallabies.
How you doing, eh?
And with that closure, the entire sanctuary had to shut its doors for good. A good portion of the animals were rehomed, but for the ones that couldn't find one, they were unfortunately shot and permanently neutralized by the owner. When writing this script, I was disgusted just by hearing this. Urban legends amongst town people started once OZE shut their doors. like the spirit of an actual Bunyip lived inside the Ettamogah animatronic. Since management wouldn't allow him to perform, or wouldn't fix him, he put curses on the place after being shut down. Till this day, the Ettamogah Bunyip sits in that same swamp, inside the abandoned sanctuary that now has been converted to a junkyard. Sometimes locals pass by and take photos of him through the gate, as he peers off menacingly, still waiting for the day to come in which he can start performing for families once again. Old newspaper articles and promotional material for the Adelaide Festival has been resurfacing online recently. It's an art fest that takes place every March in South Australia and was founded in 1960. Now apparently, in 1972, something called the Bunyip Children's Theatre was opened up there. Kids would walk into a dark, separate room to watch a group of Bunyip animatronics perform. As Murray Bridges' article says, Dennis made several other animatronics. The weirdest thing is, though, aside from these newspaper articles and hearsay from people who've gone, there is zero record of any of them existing. I theorize that this Bunyip show ran for a couple years, then maybe Dennis just demolished them for good once they stopped performing for the art fest. Whatever the case, this little proof shows that Bertha the Bunyip did, in fact, have brothers born before her that she sadly never got the chance to meet. Now, these next couple guys were not made by Dennis Newell. Their creators, however, were inspired by him to go on to create these guys, so I jokingly call them Bertha's distant cousins that she barely sees anymore. In 1964, founder John Landy opened a new roadside attraction in the city of Coffs Harbour, New South Wales, Australia, called the Big Banana. Inspired by Dole's giant pineapple tower in Hawaii, the giant banana structure was built to get people driving on the road to stop over and investigate the place. It acted only as a fruit stand pit stop after opening, and the only things on the property were a 20-acre banana plantation where visitors were invited to pick their own fresh bananas, a gift shop, and a cafe. Visitors were really only invited to take a short rest during their road trips and spend a couple hours there, not exactly the entire day. John Landy wanted the place to become something more than just a short pit stop, though. He wanted the Big Banana to turn into a big Disney-style theme park, but when planning for it, he couldn't meet the budget correctly. So instead, the property was sold in 1988 to a company called Horticultural World. The new owners had the same intentions as Landy did, and actually went through with the project. Closing that same year in 1988, the Big Banana went under an extensive revamp, with the property gaining 25 more acres. It was closed for 9 months as developers added a monorail ride that showed off the park's beautiful Australian nature and an interactive World of Bananas museum. On that monorail tour ride, several animatronics were placed along the trail to make it more lifelike, avoiding passengers getting bored and falling asleep during the tour. Most of the animatronics were mythical alien-like plants that would talk and move when the monorail passed them, but most famously added was the Billabong Bunyip. His nickname comes from an Australian English word meaning a small body of water that's filled with bacteria-ridden still water. The monorail riders were brought all around the park, and just before hitting the park's slopes, the tour guide would shift their tone. They'd warn everyone that they accidentally fell into a Billabong.
Hey, watch out for the Billabong, Bunyip,
where an ancient, horrifying beast lived, making the ride feel more exciting and scarily intense. Separate animatronic parts were put into the water, giving the illusion that he measured hundreds of feet long. In reality, his head performed alone. Just like his cousin Bertha, the same visitors regularly came back for a good scare. Over the next 20 years, new owners would come and go. In that time frame, the mini roller coaster ride, ice rink, laser tag, mini golf, and a new main attraction, the biggest water slide in Australia, were all built and added, amongst others. This took the main focus away from Billabong's monorail ride. Putting the budget towards updating other amusements, Big Banana permanently closed the monorail ride in 2005. As for whether or not Billabong still sits underwater, the manager actually teased the public, knowing everyone needs to know the answer. While parts of the monorail ride were being auctioned off in 2022, the Daily Telegraph newspaper had an interview with him. One of the questions they asked was, "So where is the Bunyip?" He replied saying, "I'm not sure. I believe it is still there under the water. One day we will bring it up and repurpose it. We have always joked about raising the Bunyip. but we don't know when or for what yet. To me, he came off jokingly, but this is pretty much an affirmation that Billabong still sits under the water, rotting away as the days go by slowly. Sadly meeting the same fate as Pleasure Island's Moby Dick animatronic. May 27, 2023. A mysterious video of a new bunyip emerging to terrorize a new group of people surfaced, now in England instead of Australia. His button station reads, "Call me, if you dare." Once called out of the water, he roars, revealing his 4 knife-like fangs and other sharp teeth. He has tiny ear fins on the sides of his head, and his eyes beam bright red. When back to being submerged under the water, his nose mechanisms make bubbles, as if he's actually breathing. Even though he's the newest known bunyip animatronic, a lot of people in our community argue that he is the scariest, especially more than the modern Bertha. He unfortunately no longer performs for the public. He was displayed for only a couple months by his owner, Mark Waller, at Crawborough Boating Lake in East Sussex, England. Mark Waller did publicly confirm he was inspired by Bertha, and he puts together homemade inventions regularly as a hobby. Other inventions of his being a robot snake and an Addams Family thing hand animatronic, amongst many others. You guys should reach out to him so he can publicize the show once again for us. If you could bring back any of them, which of Bertha's family members would you revive? Type your comment out right now, and check out what other people are saying down below.